press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
Hello dear students, welcome back to the class. In today's class, we will be discussing about the endocrine system in human body, the various glands, the hormones secreted by these glands and their functions. So, let's begin the class by understanding something about the endocrine system. The endocrine system is another pathway of control and coordination. We have discussed in detail about the nervous system, which involves the signaling of nerve impulses, the transmission of nerve impulses. But endocrine system does not involve that. It does not involve the nerve impulses. Instead of that, it involves chemical signaling. So, endocrine system is the hormonal or chemical means of information transmission. Endocrine system has got number of ductless glands. The term ductless glands is very important. It involves number of ductless glands. These glands are specialized at synthesizing and releasing hormones. So these have got ductless glands, that is, they do not have duct. The secretions are directly released into the blood. The secretions directly diffuse into the blood. Duct is a small tube-like structure, but these are ductless, meaning they do not have ducts. As and when these hormones or these chemicals are synthesized, they are released directly into the blood. So, ductless gland is a term which is very important. Let's understand what this gland is. A gland is nothing but an organ, but a special organ. Is an organ made up of cells which are specialized for secretion of particular chemical substances. A gland is an organ which has got cells, and these cells are specialized at secreting some chemical substances, and these chemical substances are referred to as the hormones. That is what we are speaking about. So the endocrine system is a chemical means or hormonal means of information transmission. It entails various ductless glands. So glands are these are the organs that have got cells which are specialized for secreting certain chemical substances referred to as hormones. What are these hormones then? Hormones are the chemical messengers. These are the chemical messengers that carry the messages in the form of chemicals from the area where the stimulation has happened to the target organs. So from the area where the stimulation has taken place, these hormones are messages, the chemical messages travel to the target organs. So these are the special chemical substances secreted in minute quantity. Minute is a very little quantity. Chemical substances are secreted in very little quantity by these endocrine glands. The important thing is these hormones, they are carried by blood. I told you endocrine glands, that is the ductless glands, are the one which directly secrete these chemicals into the blood. So these are carried by the blood to the target organs on which they act, coordinate their activities and various functions. So remember, in the last class we discussed how this endocrine system works. Upon stimulation, there is one set of cells called as the stimulated cells. So these stimulated cells, upon stimulation, what they do? They release chemicals around them, and these chemicals diffuse around the original cells. They diffuse around the original cells and they travel, they are released directly into the blood. These chemical substances are released directly into the blood. And there are other type of cells which have got some specialized molecules on their surfaces that are capable of recognizing, receiving these chemical informations. There are another type of cells or organs that have got special molecules on their surfaces, and they are capable of receiving, and these have got receptors. Then these receptors are capable of receiving, understanding the information sent in the form of chemicals. And what they do? These are carried by blood to the target organs on which they act and coordinate their activities and functions. So target organs, they receive this information, and upon receiving information, they decide, they know what to do, how to act, what to do, what functions to carry out, what activities are to be done. So this is all about the endocrine system. Another important thing, the notable thing about hormones is that they are synthesized at places away from where they act and diffuse to the area of action. These hormones are synthesized at a different place, not at a place where they actually act. They are synthesized at places away from where they act, and they simply diffuse to the area of action. And these hormones are carried by blood, they are directly released into the blood. So this is all about hormones, and this information we need to know about the hormones, the endocrine system as a whole. So let's move further. The major endocrine glands in human body. These are the major endocrine glands in human body: the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the adrenal gland, islets of Langerhans or pancreas. Islets of Langerhans are the one that are located inside pancreas, followed by gonads. Gonads are sex organs or the sex glands, ovaries in female and testes in male, hypothalamus, parathyroid gland and thymus gland. We will be discussing about the first 5 major endocrine glands in human body. We will be discussing about the pituitary, the thyroid, the adrenal, islets of Langerhans and gonads. So let's move further. This is a picture depicting the location of various glands in our body. The location of various glands: the pituitary located at the base of the brain, the thyroid in the throat region, the pancreas or the islets of Langerhans, adrenal located on the top of kidneys, ovaries in the pelvic region, testes in the scrotum, the pelvic region. So the first and the most important gland, the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is also referred to as the master gland. The pituitary is the master gland because it secretes about 9 different kinds of hormones. A single gland secretes about 9 different kinds of hormones, and it influences the functioning of various the secretions and various functions, and this is the reason it is referred to as the master gland. It is also known as the conductor of endocrine orchestra. Let's understand the pituitary. It is located at the base of the brain. So this is the base of the brain, and the enlarged picture is given here. The pituitary. So this is the pituitary located at the base of the brain. The hormones secreted by pituitary. I told you about 9 hormones are secreted by pituitary, and these are the major among them: the growth hormone, the thyroid stimulating hormone, melanocyte stimulating hormone, prolactin, vasopressin, oxytocin and many more. And hence this is referred to as the master gland because it secretes many different hormones and it regulates the functioning and activities of all this and various target organs related to this. So this is all about the pituitary. It secretes various hormones, and the most important being, that is the hormone that is for our study, that is included in our syllabus, is the growth hormone. So let's focus only on growth hormone now. Growth hormone, as the name indicates, this is a hormone that influences growth of an individual. So the target organs are the target cells, almost all the cells of the body. Every cell has to grow. So the target of growth hormone is all the cells of the body. Every cell has to grow. Is it not? Individual as a whole has to grow. So growth hormone has got influence on all the cells of the body. So the target here is all the cells of the body. Let's understand the functioning of growth hormone. This growth hormone is also known as somatotropic hormone. Somatotropic hormone, which influences the growth of all the cells It influences the growth of every organ, every part of the body. So the growth hormone regulates both physical and mental development. It influences both physical as well as the mental growth of an individual. So let's understand what happens if there is some dysfunctioning or some disorder in the secretion of this growth hormone. Before that, I want you to understand these hormones are the chemical substances that are released in very minute quantity, very small quantity. These hormones are to be released precisely in a sense, they are to be released as and when required in a particular quantity. As growth hormone is important, it doesn't mean it is to be released in a large quantity. It is to be released, it is to be regulated or controlled. There must be controlled release of these hormones. The quantity and the timing of the hormone release is very, very important. There are some hormones which are very active during our childhood days. There are certain hormones that get stimulated, that get activated once we reach puberty. And there are some set of hormones that almost are not active after puberty. And there is particular timing. At some point of time, some hormones are very, very important. The release of those hormones and the activities of those hormones influence various activities of different organs of our body. So the timing and the quantity of the hormone released is very, very important. It must be very much balanced. This growth hormone regulates both physical and mental development growth of an individual. So let's move on to the other topic, that is the disorder. Disorder is dysfunctioning, or what happens if it is not secreted in a proper quantity, what happens if it is secreted in excess, what happens if it is secreted at a different other period of time, not actually when it is required to. So this is all we study under the dysfunctioning or disorders. Deficiency of this hormone, deficiency is if it is secreted in a very less quantity, very, very less quantity, lesser than that which is required, lesser than the optimum is what deficiency means. So deficiency of this hormone, that is the growth hormone. We are simply discussing about the growth hormone only. Pituitary secretes various other hormones, but we are focused on growth hormone only. What happens if growth hormone is not secreted in a proper quantity during our childhood days? What happens? It leads to dwarfism. Dwarf is shortness. You must have seen people with 3.5 feet, 4 feet, is it not? Less than 4.5 feet. So this is what is referred to as dwarfism. If this hormone is not secreted in a proper quantity, or the deficiency of this hormone in childhood days leads to dwarfism, shortness. What happens if it is secreted in excess? If it is secreted in excess even after maturity, if it is secreted in excess prior to sexual maturity, before sexual maturity, if it is secreted in excess, it leads to gigantism. Gigantism is something very large, very huge. So if it is secreted in excess prior to sexual maturity, before sexual maturity, it leads to gigantism. There is another term called as acromegaly, which is just reverse of this. If it is secreted in excess even after sexual maturity, it leads to acromegaly. You need to remember only these two terms, that is sufficient. Deficiency of this hormone leads to dwarfism, and if it is secreted in excess prior to sexual maturity, it is referred to as gigantism. So this is all about the growth hormone. It influences every cell of the body. Every cell needs to grow, every cell has to develop. So the target organ, the target cells are every cell, almost all the cells of the body. So that's all about the growth hormone, also referred to as the somatotropic hormone. Hormone released by or secreted by the pituitary gland. Pituitary is the master gland. Shall we move further? The next important, the very important gland is the thyroid gland. You must have heard about the thyroidism or hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism. You must be familiar with these terms which are quite common these days, especially the hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidisms. These are the terms which we are very much familiar these days because of so many reasons. Thyroid is a very, very important gland because it brings balance in the body. It is very important for the balanced growth of an organism. The growth hormone is the one that is very much needed for the growth of cells, but there must be balance. There must be physical, psychological and mental balance in a human body. Thyroid gland is the one which is involved in performing all these tasks. Thyroid gland is the one which regulates the metabolism of the body, metabolism of carbohydrates, fats and all these things. So let's understand about it when we come across the functioning of thyroid gland. Let's now understand where it is actually located. The thyroid gland is located at the throat region. It is a reddish brown colored gland, that is located below pharynx at the throat region. So this is a thyroid gland located in the throat region below the pharynx, a reddish brown colored gland. The hormone secreted by this is thyroxine, a very important hormone, a very important chemical that is needed for the balance, overall balance of an individual. This thyroxine is made up of amino acid and iodine. So iodine is very, very essential for the synthesis of thyroxine. The target cells are almost all the cells of the body, because it has to direct every cell of the body regarding the metabolism. Therefore, the target cells here also are all the cells of the body are the target cells. The target organs are every organ in the body is the target. Let's understand its functions. I told you it's a very important gland because it influences the rate of metabolism. The rate of metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Whatever food we eat will have carbohydrates, proteins, fats, all these things. The major being the carbohydrates, proteins and fats, and added to this we will also have minerals, vitamins, so on. But the metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins and fats is very, very important. It influences how much of food is to be digested, how much of carbohydrate is to be digested, how much is to be assimilated, how much of fat is to be digested. It directs everything. It directs what should happen to the food, how much digestion should happen, how much activity is to be performed. So it keeps us very active. If thyroid gland is functioning at a cool up pace, or if it is working properly, a person will be active. A person will be really doing good. He is capable of handling stress. So thyroxine influences the rate of metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins and fats. And that is how it promotes the mental and physical development of an individual, so as to provide the best balance for growth. And that is the reason it is referred to as the personality hormone. The personality hormone because it influences both physical and mental development, balance of an individual. How do you assess the personality of a person? Not just by looking at his physique, but also you'll assess, you'll understand, you'll assess the personality of a human, of any individual, also by his or her psychological well-being or mental stability. So thyroxine is the one which promotes mental and physical development of the body, and it provides the best balance for growth, and that is the reason it is referred to as the personality hormone. Remember, the hormone that is referred to as the personality hormone is thyroxine. You must have come across some people advertising that a consumption of iodized salt is very much recommended. It is true, the consumption of iodized salt is very much recommended because iodine is very much necessary for the synthesis of thyroxine. Thyroxine is made up of amino acids and iodine. If there is iodine deficiency, let's understand what happens. Let's understand the disorders related to that. So we were at this, thyroxine referred to as a personality hormone. Now we are supposed to discuss something about its disorder. What happens if there is iodine deficiency in our diet. It leads to goiter. Iodine deficiency in our diet leads to the goiter. So goiter is something specific to a particular area. The very common symptom of goiter is the swollen neck. Swollen neck is one of the symptoms or the very common symptom of goiter. So this can be prevented very easily if there is a sufficient intake or the controlled intake of iodine. Iodine must be taken as per the requirement. If there is a consumption of iodine in our diet, if it is balanced, the goiter will be, or the symptoms will be reduced, and the problem shall be overcome. But there is also another disorder related to thyroid gland, that is hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. The term hypo refers to under secretion, less secretion, below, less than what is required is what hypo. So the underactivity of this gland or secretion of thyroxine in the levels that is less than the required is referred to as hypothyroidism, and hyperthyroidism is something opposite to that. If it is secreted in excess, more than what is required, it leads to hyperthyroidism, or the overactivity of this gland is what is referred to as, in adults especially, we refer this to with adults. The overactivity of this gland in adults leads to hyperthyroidism. The underactivity leads to hypothyroidism. There are certain symptoms, specific symptoms related to hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. But what happens is, in hypothyroidism, there is undersecretion and underactivity. The metabolism rate reduces. The metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins reduces. What happens? The person suffering from hypothyroidism will not be active enough. Seems to be very lazy. Seems to get tired. And hyperthyroidism is just opposite of that. There is overactivity in an individual suffering from this. Overactivity is metabolism rate enhances. There is a high rate of metabolism. And here also person suffers from loss of weight and many other symptoms like the eyeballs will be protruded and heart rate increases. These are some of the symptoms related to hyperthyroidism. The main thing is the metabolic rate enhances. The metabolic rate is more than what is required, and that also affects an individual in its own way. So undersecretion is also dangerous. Oversecretion is also quite dangerous. It has to be secreted in a particular quantity, in a required quantity. So the timing and the quantity of the secretion is very, very important. So this is all about the thyroid gland, a reddish brown colored gland. Let's move on to the another type of gland called as the islets of Langerhans. So islets of Langerhans is a very, very small gland located inside pancreas. Actually, many people claim that, or in your textbooks also it is given that the insulin and glucagon are secreted by pancreas. But inside pancreas, there is a very small gland called islet of Langerhans, and this is what is concerned with the secretion of hormones called as insulin and glucagon. So islets of Langerhans, it is located inside pancreas. A very small gland inside pancreas is islets of Langerhans. Hormones secreted by islets of Langerhans are insulin and glucagon. So you must be very familiar with the term diabetes mellitus these days. So let's understand what that is and what is the activity or action of insulin and glucagon in the body. Target cells, almost all the cells of the body, notably the liver, because liver is the place where glycogen is stored, and the conversion of glycogen to glucose and glucose to glycogen. So notably the liver is the target organ, and of course every cell requires glucose, and every cell accepts glucose, has to accept glucose for the activity of every cell. So all the cells of the body are the target organs, are the target cells, Notably liver is, I'll tell you in the next picture, you'll understand why the notably liver is the term I have mentioned here. So hormones are insulin and glucagon. Let's understand the functioning. Insulin is a very important hormone that regulates blood sugar levels. It regulates the blood sugar levels. The sugar level, the glucose level in the blood is regulated by insulin. Let's understand what happens. When sugar levels in the blood rise, they are detected. That is, the pancreas or the islets of Langerhans, what they do is, they release this hormone referred to as insulin. In the next picture, the concept will be clear to you. So this depicts how the insulin and glucagon together work in maintaining the blood sugar level, the glucose level in the blood. What happens after a meal, after a full meal? The sugar level dramatically raises in the blood. After having a full meal, in half an hour or 1 hour or so, the sugar level or the glucose level, the carbohydrates are broken down. Most of our food will have carbohydrates, and these carbohydrates are broken down in a particular pathway, and glucose level in the blood increases. When the glucose level is increased, the pancreas or the islets of Langerhans. So you better refer to the red colored or the dark pink colored arrow mark here with reference to insulin. High blood sugar. High blood sugar is whenever the amount of sugar in our blood raises, either due to full meal or due to many other reasons, when there is high blood sugar, that is the levels of sugar is high in blood, what happens is it promotes insulin release. It promotes insulin release. That is the pancreas, the islets of Langerhans inside pancreas promotes the release of the hormone called insulin. What insulin does is, insulin stimulates glucose uptake. That is the insulin, it promotes or it helps, it prompts the tissues to take up this glucose. What insulin does is, it stimulates glucose uptake from blood. It tells or it directs cells to take glucose for their activities. Most of the glucose is taken, but some of the glucose is still left in the blood. Something has to be done to that glucose as well. What happens is, this also stimulates glycogen formation. Glucose also directs the formation, the conversion of glucose into glycogen. Glycogen is the storable form of glucose and it is stored in liver. So that is why the target organ notably liver. Because what happened here is, whenever there is a raise in sugar level in the blood, the islets of Langerhans release insulin. Insulin detected and insulin directs the cells, every cell in the body, to take up insulin for their activities. And some of the glucose, the other part of the glucose, the leftover, is converted in the form of glycogen and stored in the liver. So this is the functioning of insulin, stimulates glycogen formation and that is stored in liver. So now what happened? The sugar level dropped. But sugar level should not drop also. It should not drop below the normal. Whenever the sugar level in the blood drops below the normal, the glucagon comes into picture. So now let's refer to the green colored arrow mark and green color boxes here. Low blood sugar. When the sugar level in the blood drops, what happens? The same, the islets of Langerhans, they get stimulated, promotes glucagon release. The islets of Langerhans, what they do now is, they promote the release of another hormone called glucagon. Glucagon is that, what happens? Glucagon is, it stimulates glycogen breakdown. So glycogen now is stored in liver, right? And what it does is, it directs the breakdown of glycogen to glucose again. So now what happens? Raises blood sugar level. The blood sugar level now dramatically raises because the glycogen stored in liver is broken down into glucose, stimulates glycogen breakdown. Is it not? Glucagon. Glucagon stimulates glycogen breakdown. Glycogen is broken down into glucose, and that is how blood sugar again increases, raises blood sugar. So this is how both insulin and glucagon, they regulate blood sugar levels. Two important hormones, insulin and glucagon, secreted by the islets of Langerhans located inside pancreas. Is this clear to you? Now let's understand what happens if it is secreted in less quantity. Under secretion of insulin leads to the diabetes mellitus, the most famous, most common disorder found in most human beings, irrespective of gender, is diabetes mellitus. Under secretion of insulin is, if insulin is not secreted in proper quantity, what happens? Blood sugar level keeps on increasing. Blood sugar level keeps on increasing, so it leads to disorder called diabetes mellitus. It has got its own symptoms, and if it is not treated, what happens? It leads to the damage of several other organs. It has got its own prolonged effect. So the under secretion of insulin, when insulin is not secreted in proper quantity, what happens? The sugar level in the blood remains as it is. It keeps on raising. The glucose level in the blood keeps on raising. So this is all about diabetes mellitus. Now let's move on to the another important gland, that is the adrenal glands. The adrenal gland, very, very important and very interesting. So before I could explain adrenal gland, I want you to imagine this situation. Imagine a deer is being threatened by a tiger. A tiger is chasing a deer. It wants to eat it up. What happens to deer now? Is deer okay with that? No, not at all. Imagine if you see a poisonous snake in front of you, hissing in front of you. What happens? Are you alright with that? No, not at all. These are the dangerous situations wherein we need to protect ourselves. Either it is an animal or a bird, a squirrel or a human being. We encounter dangerous situations, emergency situations. The situations wherein we need to fight against them. We need to fight against those situations, and we need to win over those situations. More than above all these things, we need to protect ourselves from these dangerous situations. Is it not? Our life is under threat. What we will do? What a deer does, or what a goat does when a tiger is chasing it? It runs faster than it, right? It wants to save its life. What happens when we see a snake in front of us, a poisonous snake, a cobra in front of us? We need to save our lives. Our life is a danger. We will run. But before running, so many changes, so many adjustments, so many preparations happen in our body. Not just our legs run and we are very quite fine with that. No, not at all. We are not at all quite normal with that. So many changes, so many dramatical changes happen inside our body. We start sweating. Our heart starts beating at a faster rate. Our breathing rate increases like anything. We start sweating, and also we may start shivering. And what happens? We feel as if our blood is rushing. The blood supply to the muscles increases then. And immediately we start running. We want to escape. We want to protect ourselves from this dangerous situation. So before we run, or before we decide what to do, whether to fight the situation or whether to escape from the situation, these are the emergency situations we encounter. There are so many other emergency situations. In all these emergency situations, we need to prepare ourselves, we need to prepare our body. The emergency situations could be life-threatening sometimes if not life-threatening, but really under risk. So under these situations, we need to prepare our body. Our body gets prepared. How does it get prepared? Let's understand now. So adrenal glands, these are the pair of glands, triangular cap-like structures located on the top of two kidneys. The location is on the top of two kidneys. So this is a kidney. If this is a kidney, this is a triangular shaped adrenal gland, left and the right. So this is on the top of the kidney, the left adrenal and the right adrenal gland. The hormones secreted by this adrenal gland are, the hormones are adrenaline, dopamine, cortisol, and let's focus on adrenaline now. So the target for adrenaline is most of the cells. Whenever we encounter a dangerous or an emergency situation, not only our legs work, not only our hands work, but whole of our body will experience some sort of vibrations. So most of the cells are the target cells, and notably heart, lungs and muscles, because our heart rate increases, our breathing rate also increases, and the blood rushes to the muscles and all these things. That's the reason why notably heart, lungs and muscles, but most of the cells are the target cells for adrenaline during the emergency situations. So what are the functions of adrenaline? Adrenaline prepares the body to face emergency situations properly. It prepares our body. It regulates heart rate, breathing rate, blood pressure, and that is the reason it is referred to as the emergency hormone or the fright hormone. Whenever we are frightened, so some changes happen in our body. Imagine in your dreams you had some bad dreams or a ghost in your dream. What happens? You get frightened. Fight hormone, it also prepares our body to fight against some situations. There are certain situations wherein we don't have to really escape, we don't have to run away, but we need to fight and win over the situations. It prepares our body. It prepares our body in a certain way. That is why it is also referred to as the fight hormone and flight hormone. Flight, we just escape, we just run away, we just fly away. So this hormone, that is the adrenaline, is referred to as the emergency hormone because it prepares our body to face the emergency situations properly. Fright hormone, during certain situations when we are frightened, it prepares in a certain way, prepares our body in a certain way. We sweat, and that's a preparation. Sweating is a preparation. Increase in heartbeat is also a preparation. Fight hormone, we fight against certain situations and win over them, and flight hormone, we escape. So this is all about the emergency hormone or the adrenaline secreted by adrenal glands. Hope this is clear to you. Let's move on to the another important hormone referred to as secreted by glands referred to as sex glands, the gonads. The gonads are the sex glands. So the female gonad is referred to as the ovaries and male gonad is referred to as the testes. Female gonad located in the pelvic region. Pair again located one on each side of the uterus. So this is ovary, one ovary, and this is another ovary. Is this clear to you? Located in the pelvis region or the pelvic region, one on each side of the uterus. This is the uterus and ovaries are located one on each side of the uterus. So the hormones secreted by this ovaries are estrogen and progesterone. Very important, referred to as the feminine hormones. Let's understand the functioning of ovaries and the hormones secreted by it. Ovaries produce eggs and hormones. The hormones are estrogen and progesterone. You might have come across changes appearing in girls and also boys after attaining puberty or at the time of puberty. Certain changes are observed. So the changes observed in both girls and boys after attaining puberty is due to this. In girls, the estrogen is the one responsible for the appearance of feminine characters in females. The feminine nature, the feminine characters, changes in certain parts of the body is because of this. So this hormone also helps in the development of sex organs. There is another hormone called as progesterone that is involved with the menstrual cycle of females. Estrogen is the one that is responsible for the appearance of feminine characters in females after puberty. Estrogen and progesterone are the two important hormones secreted by the female gonad, that is ovaries. Is this clear to you? Female hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Now let's understand the male gonad, the testes or testicles. These are the oval shaped pair of glands located in the scrotum, that is the pelvis region again. It is located in the scrotum. So hormone produced by testes is testosterone, and testes produced, that is the functioning of testes. If I had to quote the function of testes produce sperms and a hormone called as testosterone. Testosterone is the hormone that is responsible for the appearance of masculine characteristics in males. It brings about certain changes in boys after they attain puberty or maturity. And it is also responsible for the development of sex organs. So this is all about estrogen and testosterone. Estrogen in females and testosterone in males. Is this clear to you? Gonads, the sex glands. So after understanding all these things, I would like to quote this point again. It is important that hormones should be secreted in precise quantities. I told you this in the beginning, and I would also like to quote this now, because the timing and the quantity of the hormone released is very, very important to keep an individual in a balanced way, both physically and mentally. Look at this. The timing and amount of hormone released are regulated by a mechanism referred to as feedback mechanism. So there are two types of feedback mechanisms. One is the positive feedback mechanism and a negative feedback mechanism. I told you these hormones must be secreted precisely, they must be released precisely. The timing and the quantity are very, very important. There should be some mechanism for this, right? There should be something that takes care of this, and this mechanism is referred to as the feedback mechanism. So this is all about the control and coordination, and this ends the chapter. Hope you understood the concepts. Please go through the textbook and try to answer the exercise questions. Thank you all.